Hello folks, this is Chris in Central Pennsylvania once again with news about the trade situation with South Africa. Of course, for those who are following events in Africa, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which has been around since 2000 and is up for renewal before the end of this fiscal year, 30 September 2025, is a dead letter issue. There's virtually nobody in Congress pushing for a new piece of legislation to either renew this or restart it. So with that being the reality, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which for 25 years has given many African countries duty-free access to the U.S. market in order to achieve good governance standards from those countries in their own countries, treat their citizens well, will expire. And that will be a serious problem for some countries in Africa, in particular South Africa, which relies heavily on this for their automotive exports and their agricultural exports to the United States, among other things. And this could be very devastating to the economy. So that duty-free access, which gave South African products an artificial advantage by making their products cheaper than other countries, will disappear on 30 September. Technically, it's already disappeared because in April, President Trump announced reciprocal tariffs around the world on many countries because of their barriers and their tariffs to keep U.S. goods out of their market, or quotas to keep U.S. goods limited in their markets. And South Africa is one of those countries hit by these reciprocal tariffs. Initially, South Africa was receiving a 31% tariff. But President Trump relented a couple days later and suspended those tariffs for 90 days and said these countries can come discuss bilateral trade agreements with our administration. Japan and South Korea had representatives who could speak for their presidents in the air within hours flying to Washington, D.C. to deal with these tariffs. That was Japan and South Korea. South Africa has no ambassador since the firing of Ibrahim Rasool after his racist comments against President Trump. They appoint a special envoy, Mcebisi Jonas, but he's yet to arrive in America. Months later, he's still in South Africa. They have no trade representative in the United States to negotiate a trade deal, and they have no special envoy here to discuss trade. In addition to that, the U.S.-Africa Business Summit was this year in Luanda, Angola, this week, and no high-level representative of South Africa attended that conference, although 14 different African heads of state went, not South Africa, not even their Minister of Trade or their Deputy Minister, who was fired today, by the way, Andrew Whitfield. So how serious is South Africa about this? They had 3 months to work out a deal with the United States, and they've not even made a genuine effort to make a deal. 2.5 months are gone. We're down inside the 2-week window. This is day one of a 14-day countdown to July 9th. On July 10th, South Africa will find their goods and services facing a 31% across-the-board tariff because the inaction of the South African government. Hundreds of thousands of jobs are tied to these industries, if not 1 million plus jobs tied to this, exporting goods to the United States. This is a tragedy of epic proportions about to impact South Africans. And the government of South Africa, the media, the legacy media who are complicit in this cover-up are not even talking about this. This is an urgent crisis for South Africans. Every job lost in the automotive industry has ancillary jobs. People work at petrol stations. People work in restaurants, at supermarkets. They own properties where people rent from. And all of those people won't be receiving money when those who are employed in the automotive industry lose their jobs. The people who move the parts around, the people who ship the parts. You see how this has a ripple effect. And that's just the automotive industry, which has 141,000 jobs directly tied to the export of 25,500 vehicles to the United States every year. With a 31% tariff, South Africa's cars will not be competitive. There won't be any cars coming to the United States from South Africa. Yet the African National Congress and the Government of National Unity are not taking this seriously. You're under 2 weeks left. 2 weeks left. I'm warning you. I'm telling you now, this isn't a threat. Wake up and smell the coffee, South Africa. The devastating consequences of your economy cannot be ignored, which is what you're doing now. And South Africans are sleepwalking through this crisis. This is an epic crisis. Now, I'm not saying this from a perspective, something good for the U.S. economy, because giving you access to our economy isn't necessary. Almost everything we get from South Africa we can get elsewhere. And if it's minerals, we can buy them third party from someone else if they come from South Africa. So it's really not a big deal for us, but it's critically important for you. The $20 billion in annual two-way trade between the U.S. and South Africa isn't even a rounding error in our $26 trillion a year economy. But for South Africa's $400 billion a year economy, it represents a significant portion of your GDP. Can you afford to lose that overnight? I don't think so. But your political leaders are ignoring this, sleepwalking through it like zombies. And this is going to cripple South Africa. China may be your largest trading partner, but they're not the most important trading partner. Most of what you ship there is commodities, and most of what they ship to you is finished goods, and you have a huge trade deficit with China. Whereas you have a surplus with the United States because you send things up the value chain of beneficiation and make all the money off the products, then ship them. The opposite of what you do with China. So go ahead, ignore the relationship with the United States, because it's all going to come to a crashing halt here very soon. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that someone wakes up and negotiates something. But with 2.5 months of a 3-month period gone and no action on the part of South Africa, and the United States paying attention to other events like Iran and Gaza and Ukraine and the Democrats and CNN, South Africa is very low priority. You would think that for South African politicians, their trade with the United States would be a high priority, but they think they can go it alone. Good luck with your trade with Iran. It's not going to make up for it. Or Russia, you're 0.4% of your imports coming from Russia. Good luck with that one. Cheers.